Hello, folks.
Hi there!
This is another episode of Würfel Cast. We're continuing with
Hooray!
Kyle's top 100 games of all time.
Yay! That was me being really excited.
Oh, I see. Just let me give me a moment. Let me figure out something. All right, yeah. Just a moment.
Okay?
And now we have all of that. Okay. And now we're gonna. Oh, I think we're not gonna do any kind of introduction.
No
Uh,
need.
Sorry for the small delay. It's 50 through 26.
That's
Am I right?
right.
It is.
You are very right.
Okay.
So, we ready to go?
In just a second, where I get to uh, make this
Oh,
magic
here we
happen.
are.
There we are.
Magic.
And I think without further ado, let's start with number 50.
All right, number 50 is a new game to the list. It came out last year. It's one of the games that I played the most from last year and one I really enjoy. This is a small World War II themed game called Blitzkrieg. And that name is going to make it hard to find, unfortunately. But it's something like World War II in 20 minutes. The third one down there. There you are. So, in this game, what you're doing is you're trying to win World War II. That's sort of that's thematically what you're doing. What you have is this map with different theaters of war, and then on your turn, you'll play one token down to one of the active spaces, and then that will move this little tracker a certain number of spaces in your favor. It will also give you a special action which you can perform, and that could be moving other tokens, it could be getting better tiles for future turns, lots of different things that are going on. And then if ever somebody gets to a certain number of points, the game ends. Or it can end if all of the tokens are placed, but that's a rare occurrence. It can also end if you're able to create a situation where your opponent cannot play. And that's difficult to do unless the opponent allows it to happen, but it can definitely happen because there are things that can let you mess with your opponent's token stack, and so there's that going on as well. Very short game. It says 20 minutes, and 20 minutes is about right. It works well, especially if you're traveling. If you have one person you're traveling with. It's a very good one to play because it's light and easy to pick up, but a lot of fun and a lot going on there. There's an expansion which is a different map. It's a map of the U.S. and it's sort of a man in the high tower scenario, high castle. Sorry, and it's the U.S. or sorry, it's Japan and Germany dividing up the U.S. And that's a fun map too. It's a little bit different, but it's a great little game. Oh, it looks like there's a better version of the board. That's an improvement. But I really like it. I've played it a lot, and I just think it's a fun little game, and it is a new entry on my list at number 50.
So the kids are losing their minds. The Blitzkrieg. Okay. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? Not my style of game. Looks awful. I mean, maybe plays wonderfully for some people, but no, I'm just not
Yeah,
into this
it
PvP.
isn't the prettiest game,
Yeah.
but I found it to be rather enjoyable. Anyway.
Yes. So that was Blitzkrieg. Let's get to number 49.
49, I believe this is another game you have not played. This one definitely looks better than Blitzkrieg. It was a surprise game to me. I discovered it about this time last year. And I had actively avoided it before then, but once I played it, I was really, well, hooked, or you might even say obsessed, because this is the game Obsession.
Yeah.
And this is the game about sort of old English families trying to keep up appearances, trying to invite people over for parties so that they can improve their prestige and standing, trying to marry off their sons and daughters to a wealthy family. This game is really quite delightful. I had initially avoided it because there were these tiny, tiny, minuscule cards, but those are upgraded to regular full-size cards. And to be honest, those cards have just very little function in the game anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal. But what you're doing is you're using these different kinds of workers, and they each have different functionalities, and you're playing some cards which you're going to use to put on certain events. And the more you put them on, different things are going to happen to them. Sometimes they'll flip over, sometimes they'll have different sort of long-term effects. But ultimately, there are goals you're kind of trying to go for each couple of rounds, and then you're trying to build a pool of workers because the different workers can activate different things. And there's an expansion that adds a bunch of different specialized workers, which I think is fun. There's a solo version, which is okay. But just sort of by itself, the base game is a lot of fun. There was a lot of love put into it, a lot of thought. It's a fairly good quality production, and I just really found it very enjoyable. And everyone sort of naturally finds themselves role-playing the various characters from various British costume dramas. And this is just a very good little game that kind of came out of nowhere for me, but straight onto my list at number 49.
Yeah, I wanted to say it looks interesting, but it doesn't look interesting. It sounds interesting. Let's say that. The looks of the game are somewhat very much subjective. There.
Fair enough. It's very functional. I understand sort of those tiles that you see out there in that picture we were just looking at don't look all that exciting, but they are very functional. And even though that's not a very thematic component, if you go to the cards, it's lots of... Well, the cards are actually quite nice. It's sort of old photographs, and even though they don't look all that interesting, but they have nice flavor text about someone, sort of the kind of scandal or gossip that you would hear in a Victorian costume, period drama. I don't know. The art's functional. Everything's very clear and easy to understand, and nothing really gets in the way. And I think that's a good thing.
That's probably about the clarity. Yeah. I just don't like how it looks at all. It looks awful.
It looks better than Blitzkrieg.
Same for me. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Except the pieces. All right. Let's get to number 48.
All right, 48 is a classic, and this one has been on my list for a long time. It is up from number 50, which is where it was last year. It used to be up in the top 10 range, but just a lot of other great things have come out. The game is called Small World, and this is an odd little area control type game, I guess is how you'd call it. But you've got different fantasy races, and they are competing for control of spaces in this, small world. I initially was attracted to the game because it said it was a world of laughter after all, and there was an S in blood in front of the laughter, which made it into slaughter, which I thought was quite funny. But really what the game is about is you're using these different combinations of special powers and race powers. You're going to start the game by selecting one of these combinations. It gives you some sort of extra scoring ability or some extra bonus or thing you can do, and then you're going to place the tokens out, and eventually you're going to run out of tokens. At that point, you have to put your race into what's called decline, which is more like going to sleep. It flips it over, and then you can add a new one. And so timing when that's going to happen is a big part of the game. There are lots of expansions for this. So some of the later ones are a little bit more silly, but the older, the sort of first generation ones were really good and just added to the variety of the game. I have the special, 10th anniversary edition that I got years and years ago, which has the little minis, which are very unnecessary, but it's quite nice and lavish. But even just the basic game out of the box is very easy to play, not particularly thematic, but still a lot of fun, and it works well with lots of different groups of people, lots of different sizes. It's kind of like a Risk type game, but that's, a very light Risk. it's just that's sort of the easiest comparison if you wanted to have a version that has really no luck in it other than an occasional die roll, which is at most once per turn. Just a great little tight game that doesn't last too long. One I have and continue to enjoy, Small World.
Yeah, that's I like the idea of combining powers, and they're rather easy. And if you combine them, there are so many different variations and things you can do with that, you know. But it all comes down. The game basically is an area control game. It's all about the conflicts on the board, and that's why I just didn't enjoy it. I don't know. I just the straightforward conflict in games doesn't really bring me any joy, you know. But I would love to see this kind of a mechanic. Maybe it's been somewhere already, maybe in some somewhat other way. But I like this thing about combining powers. So I would like to see that in a kind of a more of a Euro game, you know, combining two different powers and they become cheaper or something, you know. I don't know, just use this part of the game in a more like an engine building game or something like that, you know.
You know, it might exist somewhere. I'm not aware of it. This is sort of the
Yeah.
game that's best known for that. But anyway, it's one that I think is can be enjoyed by lots of different people.
Okay.
So,
Number
right.
47.
Number 47. Now, this is one I know you have played. And this is one, it was on my list at 85 last year, but with its expansion and with playing it lots of times in the last 2 years, this has gone up. The game is Tapestry. Tapestry is a game with a lightly pasted on civilization theme. But really, what this game is about is moving up tracks. And you're trying to get to the end of different tracks. Every turn, you're going to spend some resources and move your token up a space on a track and perform the actions that it gives you. One of the advantages of this is it makes the game a little bit easier to teach just because you don't have to explain every possible action, just sort of a few, and give people the opportunity to explore as they go. Now, that can be frustrating as a new player, but after you've played it one time, you kind of have an idea of what the things do. The icons are not that hard, even though there are a lot of them. And then what you're also doing, as you see with those pieces there, those plasticky ones, is you're building out this board and trying to fill up rows and columns and squares on the board, which, again, isn't very thematic from a game theme point of view, but it's a fun thing to do, and racing to get these different monument tokens is quite nice. They look nice as well. The expansion added a bunch of new civilizations, which each have a special ability, special power, and can sort of change up the way you play the game. There's a solo version, but it's not very good. But the base game, especially at 2 players, is nice and tight. But even with 3 or 4, I would never go to 5. The game is a lot of fun. It does take up a ton of space on the table, though, so be aware of that. But it's one that I keep coming back to, and the more I play, the more I enjoy.
Yeah. I played this game around, let's say, 4 times. Each time I gave this game a new chance to impress me. Yet each time it somewhat failed. I'm sure I'm not so good at this game. Like, I don't know how to think in this game. That's part of me, part of my own problem. But the other part is, and that's what I think will also be a problem for some people, is the theme itself. It's so abstract within
Very
the
abstract.
gameplay that it's not almost non-existent. Though you're building up, you're feeling like you're doing something. But I would have loved that the puzzle aspect, basically a patchwork mini game on your own board with this beautiful pieces, would have been something more robust, more something more. The cards themselves, they are somewhat, they're not balanced so well it depends on what you get, and sometimes you can use up your actions just to get the cards, and they just not some. I would have loved to have a tinier deck, but more balance around it. The civilization balances,
Yeah,
yeah, there are so many different ones. I'm sure it's impossible to balance them out in a perfect way. But still, some civilizations are much easier to grasp, and that means that no matter what, if somebody gets the civilization that is easier to grasp, they are most likely gonna win or enjoy the game more. And it's so hard to introduce this game to new people, and I've sold my copy because I look forward to the first expansion. The first expansion came in. I was like, maybe we'll make the game more thematic, add something extra, some extra flavor. It added something more civilizations, and now you can build your own special building, which is basically you have your own Tetris piece.
yeah.
It should have been
No,
bigger. They should have like, okay, let's wait 2 years, but make the huge expansion that adds stuff. I don't know what about the newest expansion. It hasn't
it's
been
not out yet.
revealed. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was like, I don't want to wait for the next expansion and maybe be disappointed again. I'm just
Well,
so many great ideas here that I like as separate ideas, but not as a game itself.
yeah. And I, on the other hand, every time I play it, I think, I really enjoyed that game. And,
Yeah,
win or lose, it can be a little on the longer side. And that's why my
yeah.
preferred approach is to play it with
Oh, it
two,
is. It is
because
fun.
that keeps things much, much shorter. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one that we played it just the other day, and I was like, oh, this is a game I really enjoy. And even though I lost horribly that game, I still had a good time doing it because
But
some random weird stuff happened, and it was just so funny. But
would you
anyway,
agree? Would you agree that this is kind of a little bit of a controversial game? It's love or hate. It
that's
seems
true.
like that.
That's true.
So people love it or hate it. That's
And
the
I
only.
am in the love camp. So,
Yeah. All right. Let's get to number 46.
all right, number 46 is another area where it's kind of two games that are almost the same, but I'm only going to pick one. I'll mention the other one in passing, but yeah, on any day of the week, I could pick the other one and put it in the same slot because the games have such a similar feel. I believe are from the same designer, even though the theme's different. The game I'm picking for 46 is Orleans.
Mm,
The other game that it is very similar to is Altiplano.
mm.
But both of the games, sort of the core mechanism here is you're taking a bunch of these tokens, you're putting them into a bag, and you're improving the contents of that bag as the game goes by. So you're going to draw out a certain number at the start of your turn, and then you will be placing them in different spots. The different spots have different requirements. So, if you want to go to this spot, it might require a white and a blue, whereas this spot requires an orange and a black. I guess there isn't orange, but red and black. And then there's different things you're trying to do, all in the grand goal of getting points, which is the purpose of every game, it seems. But and these actions, all right, they're not thematic at all. It's like you put 2 tokens out here, and you get to add a new token to your bag. You put 3 tokens out here, and you get a vegetable. There's this track you're moving around and collecting random goods, and the random goods are worth points. You don't really do anything with them. It's just you collect them for points. It's another way to score points. Now, that kind of sounds, it's definitely a mechanical heavy game. Theme takes a firm backseat, and that's why Altiplano is a little bit better, but for that purpose. But I don't know, Orleans is a little easier to get into, and it has the advantage of having 2 very good expansions. One of them turns the game into a cooperative experience, and it works really well. The other one adds different boards that can kind of change up how your interactions are and kind of take the most boring part of the game, which is sending tokens off to this board to sit, and makes it a little bit more interesting. So, for that reason, it's getting the slight edge over Altiplano for me, at least this go around. I just really like it, and it's so easy to teach, and it's something that people really can enjoy, and I've found that many people do, including people who normally might not like the kind of dry Euro game. I found that this game, for whatever reason, seems to work for a lot of those people.
I like the game. Um,
Good.
when I played it, it was a long time ago, and it came out I think 2014 and something like that.
It's been around for a few years.
14, yeah. So it's very much well regarded game. Yeah, first of all, the problem I have with the game, how it looks so bad. But I looked through that. It's on that almost golden ages level of bad looking game for me. Yeah, but and I don't know, but overall I like the game. I look past that ugliness and like taking chats and putting them on those boards and the spaces like a worker placement. That was amazing. What I didn't like is this track, the map that you go around and collect goods. It's so lame. I don't know if you how do you feel about that?
That's my least favorite part of the game. That some of the expansions make that more meaningful. There are
Mm,
different. The first expansion has different ways that track will interact, and so there are ways to kind of change it. That is the part I like the least, but it's also a part where you can score a lot of points, so it's not something to ignore. But look, it's a game that I don't know that I can't say I've explored to its fullest because every time I play, I can try something different and see how it works. And maybe I just haven't spent as much focus on that track as maybe I otherwise could. Maybe that would make me enjoy it more. But the track is
yeah,
kind of, it feels a little extra. I guess I would, sorry, that map
yeah,
feels like
yeah,
it's an
yeah,
extra thing that was added on.
yeah.
But it's integrated well into the game. So
Okay. All right. Let's go to number 45.
my number 45 is a game that I think you have not played. This
No.
is one of a series of games. It's not really a series, but there's kind of a couple of designers that move back and forth between several of these games. We talked about one of them before, I believe, which was Barrage.
Mm,
But this game is called Council of Four.
yeah.
So, Council of Four. Now, there are two versions. I have the older version, and I prefer the older version for a couple of reasons. But the new one is functional and works just fine. This game has no theme at all. Let me start out right there. Well, what you're doing here is figuring out ways to collect points and setting up chains of bonuses. And that's kind of what you're doing. Like I said, that's what you're doing. You've got a hand of cards, and the cards are really just requirements to do things. And then on your turn, you're going to do an action, and that action is often placing one of your little houses out on one of these cities. Every time you do that, you activate that city's bonus and every bonus that is connected to it. So you have a chain of bonuses that you're building as the game goes on. You're also, well, this is the newer version with those minis, but you've got those tokens, those miniatures down at the bottom, and those sort of dictate the requirements for placing in that area. And so one of the things you can do as your action on a turn is to push those tokens over and add a new one to the end, which changes the costs going forward. So you have a little bit more control over the costs you're paying. And then that's the older one you see there, which has these nice little, well, never mind. It has these nice little balconies, so you're actually kind of pushing the person out the window, which, that's sort of a, a, a grim theme, but that's just kind of how it worked. Anyway, it's all about making a tree of bonuses, and it's kind of satisfying to say, okay, I do this and now I get this and this and this and this and this, and toward the end of the game you're just getting stuff every single turn, and then the game kind of comes to a crescendo and then is over. It's not a long game, it's not a hard game. I don't know that it's anything magical in this game, but the combination of all the different mechanisms that you're doing really works for me for some reason, and it's one I've enjoyed for a long time. It is down a little bit. It used to be at 34, but it's still one I continue to enjoy.
Okay. No, that's not the one I have played.
That's all
So,
right.
yep. Let's get to number 44.
Number 44 is one you have played, and it is by one
Yeah.
of the same designers. So it's sort of part of the
Oh.
same series as the game. And this is the game Grand Austria Hotel.
Oh.
Now, Grand Austria Hotel is a game about you're having people come and dine at your cafe and then having them stay at your hotel where they stay forever. What you're really doing is there's a sort of a dice drafting. You've got these dice that are rolled every round, and you're going to select one on your turn, and based on the number of dice that are in the spot where that die is. So, for example, if there are four fours, you can do the four action four times. And you're going to be taking that, doing the action, building various combos with the different cards that you have. You have staff cards that are going to give you special abilities each round or one-time bonuses. And then you've got bonuses from the guests as you fulfill their goods. They want various kinds of food. It's one that I really enjoy. And then, as if that weren't enough, a new expansion just came out, and the new expansion adds a lot more. It improved some of the graphic design on the cards, which was nice. It added some new goals and things to go for, and then it added different modules that will enable you to do different things. There's one where you're setting up a ballroom and using a new resource, which is champagne. That's my least favorite of them. But then there's one that's just more stuff, which is the best one. And then there are others in between that. It's a game I continue to enjoy, and much like, I guess, Tapestry, it's one that the more I play, the more I enjoy, and I sort of realize, that's just such a wonderful game, and it's one that I really love to come back to. The chief component, the only complaint I have about the game is the score track, which for whatever reason goes to 75, which makes it kind of difficult to calculate your end game score. But that's something that is obviously can be overcome. But I don't know. I really get a kick out of this one. It is up from 52 last time. Grand Austria Hotel.
Yeah. I found it boring. Uh, the looks of the game, it's just, not my style of art, let's say. But I really dislike the dice mechanism there. I don't know why. I just dislike it very
Well,
much. So this game is totally not for me.
and that's totally fine. It's definitely for me. We
Yeah.
just might not play it together very often.
No, never again. Number 43.
All right, number 43, and for whatever reason, these three just kind of came up in an order because I like them all about the same. This is another one from that same group, and this is, I believe, the best one, the highest one on this list for me from this group, and that is The Voyages of Marco Polo. So, The Voyages of Marco Polo, and there's two of them, right? There's Marco Polo 2 in the Service of the Khan. They are the same game. It's just two different boards, and you can combine them. One's just basically an expansion to the other. But so let's stick with the first one because I've played that more. So in this game, what you're trying to do is get points. As surprise, surprise, you're traveling around this map, and the travel is a big aspect of the game. So unlike Orleans, that's a big portion of what you're doing, and you've got to pay different costs to move on different spaces. But what you're really doing is you've got you've got dice that you'll roll every turn, and kind of the interesting thing here is it's a worker placement space where you're never truly blocked. Because if somebody takes a spot that you want, well, you'll have to pay a little bit of money, but you can go to that spot if you like. You just have to pay the value of the die that you're placing in money, so you can go really and do anything you want in any order. It just might be more expensive. You're using your dice to get resources, you're fulfilling contracts, you're traveling around the board. Those are kind of the primary things. And then the other sort of hook of the game is that everyone has a special ability, kind of like Tapestry, right? Except in this game, each special ability is really good, and I don't know if they're balanced, but no matter which one you're playing, you always think the other player has a better one. So it's, and the other player thinks it about you because they're all very strong special abilities, and they they feature actively in every game. They're going to define how you play the game. And I find that really interesting. There's a lot to love here. There was a small expansion to the first one. There's the second one in which the travel is a little bit easier. But other than that, it's 97% the same game. And I just really like it. It's one that I keep coming back to, and it fills me with joy each time that I do.
Yeah. It feels like not my kind of a game, and that's why I haven't played this one.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I I knew there would be some games on this list that you had played, but I'm not really surprised that this
indeed.
one wasn't your style.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Let's get to number 42.
all right, number 42 is a new game to the list. It is a game that I played in 2020 at Dice Tower Con in Las Vegas. And I played it with the designer and 7 other people. So it was an 8-player game, and that was, I thought I was crazy for joining such a thing, but I had such a great time. This is a deck building game. It wasn't on our deck builder list because it hadn't actually come out yet, but it definitely would have been. The game is called Ignite. It was, when we did our list of games I was excited for this year, this was my number 1 or 2.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic deck building game, and the way what you're doing is it's a combat game. So you've got a fantasy race, and it has usually 3 figures, and you're trying to get points by destroying the other people's figures. And so you set up the game and you go, and you're using these cards. Every card you can use is going to be, you can use it for its money value to buy new cards if you're in the right place. Or you can use it for its special ability. Those are the older version of the miniatures. The newer ones are much nicer than that. And the cards are, they do various kinds of combat-y things or move things. You can, like, specialize in arrows, but for arrows you've got a bow, and 1 bow will let you fire any number of arrows. There are magic spells, which usually do some big attack, but never give you any money. And then there's everything in between. I don't know that the deck building aspect is anything new, but the way that it interacts with the gameplay and what you're trying to do is to build an engine of destruction that you can use to knock people out. It's just a really fun game. It's not particularly long. I don't think it plays best at 2. That is the one thing I will say. I would definitely say 3 and 4 is definitely the way to go on this. But I just had such a fantastic time with it the first time, and now that I have it, I've had a fantastic time with it again, and hope to continue to do so.
Yeah, okay. Seems to be a PvP game.
It definitely is. It is not a peaceful hide in the corner game.
Ah, sad. All right, let's get to number 41.
Number 41 is another game that I don't think you've played. It's one we've talked about a lot, though, and it is based on, well, it has an IP that seems to be popular these days. This is Dune Imperium. And Dune Imperium, what you're doing, it's a deck building and worker placement game. You're getting these cards, and each card will allow you to place on a different type of space based on a symbol. I will say the game doesn't look all that amazing. Not a whole lot went into sort of the components. The board is very bland. There's supposedly someday, eventually, an upgrade pack coming. I purchased mine a year ago, and it's still on its way, but that's fine. Even the components are functional, even if they're not gorgeous. But the cards, it's sort of an interesting combination of playing cards and placing workers, and it's very satisfying. And the scoring can be very tense, right? It's not a high scoring game. It's the first to 10 points, and those points are hard to you're fighting hard for them. At the end of every round, there's a conflict with different results, different rewards each time, and you can decide how heavily to go into that as well. Lots of card play, lots of sort of room to explore, try different things. A few special abilities that you'll get that kind of give you an advantage in certain areas, but most of it is just making a very streamlined deck. It is one, because you're not going to go through your deck a ton of times, so you want it to be very efficient and help you to specialize in what you want to do. It's a game that I definitely say is best at 3 or 4. You can play it at 1 or 2, but those feel a bit random. But as a 3 or 4 player experience, it's very tense and tight and a lot of fun.
So it sounds interesting. Yeah, the looks of the game somewhat questionable, but because I got Last Ruins of Arnak during the last Essen, I think I pre-ordered that or no, I don't remember. I think yeah, from the Czech games website. And after playing Lost Ruins of Arnak and looking at this game, I felt like I don't need to play Dune Imperium. I know it's different, but I don't need to play it. Especially if there's a conflict there. I think I would not enjoy that kind of a conflict in a deck building game, except if it's, one of the conflicts that I enjoyed in deck building game was the Arctic Scavengers, which has this kind of a separate phase, but it was different. It wasn't really like that backstabbing and thing, direct conflict thing.
And
Here
I
it
think
sounds like that.
maybe, and it definitely is not. The conflict is really just well, in that phase maybe, but it's there's a reward that you're going for, and it's going to be based upon the number of cubes you have in there at the time it's resolved, and then you can play these special cards to sort of increase or affect that. It's kind of a separate phase after the main deck building phase. You might enjoy it more than you think because it's called a conflict or a combat, but it really is more dividing up this reward pool, and it's something to work toward if you want to.
Okay.
But I don't know if you have to decide yourself if it sounds like something you would enjoy. If you like the Dune books, which are I don't know that I do, or if you enjoy the movie, you might enjoy this. But
I
the
haven't
game
watched the
itself,
movie, so
it's ponderous and slow. But
that's what I heard. Yeah, that's why I'm not eager to
but
go to the movies and see it.
regardless, the game is not ponderous or slow. It's very tense and tight, and I think you might enjoy it more than you're thinking, but that's up to you.
It's just I haven't been into like Dune and all of this theme because Dune sounds somewhat like Game of Thrones in a desert. You have all of these houses, you have people conflicting each other. I'm like, okay, and there's a desert. Okay,
It's
sure. I
that's
don't
what the
know.
first one is, and then they end up being long philosophical essays if you read the books.
Let's see. Nice. Anyway, let's get to number 40.
All right, number 40 is a game that is, for whatever reason, often compared with Dune Imperium, and that's because they came out at the same time and used a couple of similar mechanisms, although they are very different games. This is one you mentioned a moment ago, which is The Lost Ruins of Arnak. I think of the two, I give the nod to Arnak just because I don't know, it's a little bit easier to get into. And are we still connected?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you just didn't pull it up on the screen.
Wait. What did you say? I skipped it. I thought you were introducing and I didn't hear what
Oh,
you said.
sorry, I said The Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Okay. I
Okay.
thought you were
There we
you were introducing the game that was
Oh,
like somewhat similar to whatever. I don't know.
well, I did mention it, but that's okay. So this is a game. So whereas Dune Imperium is more worker placement with deck building kind of being how you do it, this game is more deck building with a little bit of worker placement, which is important, but it's not. I don't know. I find the deck building aspect of this to be a little stronger. What you're doing is you have two workers and you're going to place them out, and they go to different spots, which get you a bunch of resources. You can sort of, and then you're buying cards, which will go into your deck, which will give you various special abilities as the game goes on. You're collecting these resources, and the primary use for these resources is to move up on this track, which, while not particularly thematic, is kind of fun because you're going to get different bonuses, and there's ways you kind of have to pick a couple of things to focus on, which I really enjoy in this game. It gives you a nice sense of direction, or you can try everything and see how it goes. Now, I am terrible at this game, and I never ever win, but
Hmm.
but I always have a good time with it. I make poor choices, and I can always tell when I made one. You're getting these different assistants, which give you special abilities that you can exhaust and get something each round, and then find a way to unexhaust it and get it again. There's just a lot of combinations that are going on here, a lot of fun interactions, and the game is not very long. It's only 5 rounds, but in 5 rounds, you really have a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things, and there just always feels like there's not quite enough time, which is a nice tension to the game. I've really enjoyed it, and I've played it with lots of different people. It plays at 2 much better than Dune Imperium, which is maybe another thing that makes me like it slightly more. But it looks good. The artwork is great here. A lot of love went into the production, and it really has been a success for me. It's in at my number 40, The Lost Ruins of Arnak.
It is, and it's somewhat thematic. It's somewhat abstract. On the other hand, it depends where you look at it. But yeah, the component wise, the iconography wise, it's a good one. It's a good production. I like the theme overly. I love the art. It just looks great on the table. If you
It
put it on the
does.
table, everybody looks like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Uh, and I love this game myself. It's amazing. I'm rather good at the game, but I like to try different stuff. So I can go with something I already know that will give me points. Kind of figure it out in a better way. But I'm like, I don't want to just win. I want to explore, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm looking forward to the expansion as well, which will add the asymmetry to each player,
Right.
between players, which is great. Basically, as I understand, everybody has their own deck now. Right now, you start with the same, and then
Right.
you will start with different decks, which is great. I also, by the way, I have upgraded these arrowheads and crystals. They are plastic pieces, and the coins and compasses were the cardboard pieces,
Correct.
and this clock as well. So I bought the upgrade that upgrades the compasses and the coins into plastic pieces as well, and the clock is also a plastic, 3-dimensional
Well,
clock, which is great.
yeah.
I like that.
The clock is just a first player marker, but I have purchased, but they have not arrived, upgraded coins and compasses, because and also nicer little those little magnifying glass and books.
Oh,
There's
nice.
nicer tokens for that
Oh,
as
they have
well.
them as
I
well.
Yeah, I ordered them. I don't know, a few days ago, because
Oh, I can
I
see
just
here.
keep coming back to this game.
I have
Yeah,
these
they
upgrades. These
yeah,
two.
mine I think are a little bit different. I actually saw someone on Etsy was selling little tiny compasses that spin that you could
Yeah,
put
I,
in that, but I would
I
worry
saw that
those
too.
would break
Yeah.
and leak. But anyway,
Yeah,
this is one I keep coming back to. It's one, and every time I do,
that's a
I'm
nice
happy
one.
I did. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where to get
So
that, but it's a nice upgrade. Anyway,
yeah,
this game seems to get a ton of love.
it
I don't know
does.
if it gets more love than the Dune. Do you know that? Which is
I
higher right
honestly
now.
don't know. I think this one is more accessible than Dune. And again,
Uh,
Dune sort
Dune
of
is
you
higher.
think, okay. Um, I don't know. I think Dune might be a more in-depth experience, whereas this one's more on the surface. But this one is much easier to get into, and it
Yes.
doesn't have the thematic baggage that Dune does. Right? If somebody doesn't like Dune, or even doesn't know about it, they might say, "I'm not interested in that." So the same thing Battlestar Galactica had back in the day, right? If you didn't know the IP, you might think, "Well, I'm not going to try that game." Even if that's not true, that's kind of the perception
Yeah.
that you might have. Whereas this one, it's a more accessible theme, and the rules are easier. It's a little bit lighter, a little less tense, and so I think that's why you might see it played more. Even though I think the people who love Dune might love it more and love it harder than they love this one.
Okay. Let's get to number 39.
All right, number 39 is not a deck building worker placement game. Number 39 is a game that I also know you have played because I believe you played it with me the first time. And this game is the ever popular perennial favorite, Wingspan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Wingspan is down a little bit. It was at 26 last time. And that's not for any reason because I play this game all the time. This game also works with so many people. What you're doing in Wingspan is you're just placing these bird cards out on this board, and then you're going to activate different things. And based upon what cards you have used, you're going to get different bonuses. So you're kind of focusing on a particular bonus. There's also and the way you'll do that is, so you've got the bird card, and it has a different habitat it can go into, which is a row of cards, and it has different costs, which are the food that it needs, and you pay those, and then you're doing, on your turn, there's an action that lets you get food, there's an action that lets you get eggs, and the eggs are also a cost for some things. There's an action that lets you get different cards. And you have a certain number of actions each round, and that number diminishes as the game goes on, so the game gets, the later rounds are, when you have more going on, they're shorter rounds, so that's a nice way to balance out how the rounds feel. This game was a hit for me from the very first time I played it. Remember, we played it on that Dice Tower cruise, and we played it, at least Victor and I don't know if you were in all those games, but we played it a ton on that cruise, and we played it a ton since then. And everyone, well, most everyone that I've played this with has really enjoyed it. It's the theme is, it's not really very strong. It has nice artwork and nice cards, but it's more mechanisms of gaining things and getting points. But hey, that is what it is. Lots of games are like that. There are 2 expansions currently. Both are excellent. The European one adds just a bunch of more bird cards, not a whole lot of more mechanisms, and the Australian one adds a different board that's a little bit faster, a little easier, and kind of a wild resource, which has some pluses and minuses to it, and I like both of them. It's the kind of thing where I would never play without all of the expansions. It's just a really fun game. It doesn't take too long. It's not that hard to understand, and I continue to enjoy it immensely.
Yeah. Yes, I do like Wingspan a lot. The first time I played it, and I played only once on the cruise that time because the first time I
Okay.
played it, I wasn't keen on it. I was like,
Okay.
okay, that's fine, that's okay, but I don't know, it's not so interesting. And then I eventually got this game just as a random purchase. I was like,
Okay.
I remember it being good, and I'm like, I was with my girlfriend at the store. I'm like, choose a game for me, choose what you like, what you would like to play with me. And she was choosing based on the covers, only like or like description, stuff like that, back of the box. Not she didn't know anything about the games, and she was like, "This one looks really nice." I was like, "Oh yeah, Wingspan. You like nature, you like birds. Let's buy it. Let's play it." And I played with my girlfriend, and then it kind of clicked.
Yeah.
Maybe it clicked because the first time I played it was 4-player game, everybody doing their stuff. As a 2-player game, I kind of felt it felt better to start with 2
I
players.
agree. I agree.
And I have the European expansion. I do not have Oceania expansion. I had many opportunities to buy this one. It's everywhere, but I feel like I don't need Oceania expansion right now. I'm not so eager to just rush to get it. There's a ton of game here, and this game just
There is.
works. This game
Yeah,
just works.
and although I said I would almost never play it without both expansions, that's mostly because I don't feel like sorting stuff out. It works very well even by itself in the base game. It's not like there's something that you say, "Ugh, I wish that were here. I wish that bird." The thing is, if you have all of the expansions and you use them all, you've got a huge stack of cards, which is difficult to shuffle, right? It's difficult to shuffle 500 cards. Um,
Yeah,
but I look, it works really well with a lot of people. This game.
it is. All right, let's get to number. Wait, one doesn't load. Okay, let's get to number 38.
Number 38. Oh, look, there's an advertisement for Last Ruins of Arnak. Um,
Right now, no, read the rulebook. Okay. No.
Number 38. This is a new one to the list, and that's because I had not played it when I did the list last time. It was very difficult to find for a long time, but CMON just came out with a new version of it. This is a real-time game about fighting aliens. The game is called Project Elite. And in Project Elite, I kind of just described it, right? You're going to set a timer, and it's a very short timer, and then everybody's rolling dice frantically, working together, trying to do different objectives. And so you'll roll your dice and re-roll them and use them and just go frantically for about 2 minutes, and then then the game kind of slows back down, and you're going to resolve the different aliens, which are going to move forward, push things where they shouldn't be, attack the players and do them damage. When you get too much damage, your abilities kind of change a little bit. At its core, what you're trying to do is there's some objectives out there, and you want to get next to them, and you want to put certain dice out there to activate the objectives, and then you want to run back to start. And you want to do that before you die, or before too many rounds have gone by. The aliens I think there's 4 of them if you have the expansion, but they're just sort of these basic grunty aliens that each have some sort of nasty thing it can do. But you kind of kill them and set them aside, and that's what you're doing. And then there's also these big boss aliens that can come out, and those will really change things up. They can be quite terrifying if they come up at the wrong time. But at the core of the game, it's rolling dice as fast as you can to activate things and get special abilities, and then sort of seeing what happens. And it's so fast and fun that it's difficult not to enjoy this game. Obviously, if you don't like the real-time, everybody goes at the same time aspect, this isn't going to be for you. But if you do like that, there's a lot to love in this one. And I happen to enjoy that kind of game, and so I have loved this game quite a lot.
All right. Yeah.
I assume you have not played this one.
No. Let's get to number.
It is not
37.
a dry Euro, I'll tell you that.
No, but I don't care. Yeah, about this game at all. Number 37.
Number 37. Ooh, I really am very excited for the expansion on this one. This is a game, and I've talked about it, on our show a little bit, but it's a game that the first time I saw it, I kind of was like, meh. But after it got a little bit more buzz for winning a major gaming award this year, I decided to give it another try, and it really worked for me that new time. The game is called Paleo, and again, it's a cooperative game, and it's a weird cooperative game. It's really unlike anything else. You're trying to ultimately get 5 points. That's that painting you see up there in that first picture. And then there's different scenarios, and each is going to have different ways to earn those points. You're trying to get 5 of those, complete that mammoth painting before you get 5 skulls, which means 5 of your people have died or other things have happened. And the way the game works is you've got this deck of cards, and they each have different backs, and so you can tell from the back of the card what you're likely to find on the other side. And everybody at the same time is going to draw 3 cards from the top of that deck, look at the backs only, and decide which one to play, and then put the other 2 back. And so, you have an idea what you're going for, then you reveal them, see what happens. You can work together and help each other sometimes if one person doesn't have what he needs for a certain action. And oftentimes the costs that you're paying is going to be discarding cards off the top of your deck. So resources are going to be lost, opportunities are going to be missed. But at the end of the deck, you're going to shuffle it all back up and go through it again. And the advantage is at this time you have a better understanding of what you're likely to see on the other side. You can see, okay, I remember there was this card, it had this back, and I needed these 3 things to do it. I wasn't ready this time, but I can come back the second time through the deck with some knowledge that I have gained and be ready to conquer it. And that's really what you're doing. And then the scenarios, they're very rules light. They don't add a ton, but they add different cards with different things you're going for, and a lot of the narrative kind of emerges from the gameplay and the act, and sort of what the players are doing. But I just really enjoyed this. It works so well, and it's so easy to jump into and teach. And you can play it alone, which is kind of hard to do. You're managing a lot if you do that. Or you can, but it works really well with 2 or 3 players. 4 is a bit rough. But with 2 or 3, it's just a very fun cooperative game that feels different and allows you to explore and do a lot of different things with very simple rules. And I'm very much looking forward to the expansion, which is just going to add lots more. And so there you have it. My number 37 new to the list is Paleo.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. It sounds cool, but it's impossible to get
Oh, really?
English copy here.
Oh, okay.
Basically impossible. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not. It
I
isn't
don't think you'd
anywhere.
want.
There's
Okay.
German. There's French, but where's the English copy? I don't understand.
Well, I have
Why?
one, but
Yeah, the distribution is I don't know what's going on. Why they don't have it here yet? It's been a while already.
oh,
It's 2020 game. I don't know. Weird.
yeah. Well, I don't know what to tell you about that. Maybe it just was very popular. But this is not one that is really very language independent. There is a lot of text on those cards, and you won't know what is going to come up, so you really need to wait for the English version.
Indeed. All right, let's get to number 36.
All right, number 36 is one of the few games that has held at exactly the same space between this and my last list. It used to be in my top 10. It's fallen a little bit, mostly because it's become a bit bloated, but I still love it. This is the game is called Galaxy Trucker, and this is just a fantastically fun game. This is one that definitely, some games you sort of see the mechanisms and the theme is loosely around that. This one, it mixes them really nicely. What you're doing is you're building a ship, a spaceship, and you're going to then take it out into space and see how it fares. And the first sort of half of each round is going to be a real time. Everybody goes and you're flipping over these tiles and placing them on your board and you're trying to get different things. Everything is useful and there are rules for where things need to be, but they're pretty easy rules. And then, after everyone's had time to build a ship, usually not quite enough, but some time to build a ship, you're then going to go through this deck of cards, and the deck of cards is going to tell you the various things that happen. And based on where sometimes, for example, you find planets that you can go to and find goods that you can take back and sell for points. And if you get those, being first is going to give you first choice if you have the fastest ship. But other times, you'll be attacked by a space pirate or something. And then being in front is not always a good idea because they'll attack you first. That gives you the first chance to defeat them and get a bonus. But oftentimes it means you're going to be hit hardest, fastest. As you get hit, meteors can hit into you, people can shoot at you. Your ship is slowly going to start breaking apart. And those bad things tend to find the weak point in your ship and cause it to break apart faster. Some people don't like that part, right? The second phase is somewhat controversial. You'll either really like it or you really will hate it because it's a bunch of bad stuff happening directly to you right away. But if you can take it lightly and say, well, that's just the spirit of the game, then you'll really enjoy it. And I really enjoy this game. I've played it so many times. Now, it does have a bunch of expansions, and the problem with those is once you mix them in, they're kind of hard to remove, and those kind of complicate things. There's a lot of more complicated abilities and tiles that you then have to figure out how to explain. And I don't know that I love that, even though I would always play with them. Some people, it's a lot to process on your first time through. But I really enjoy, if I play with somebody who knows how to play, I'm definitely putting those in. I don't know, I just really like this game. It makes me really happy every time I get to play it.
Okay. Yeah, I played it a long time ago. I remember not being so keen on it, and I played it lately, the new version, the 2021 version, quite like a few weeks ago, and yeah, it just confirmed that I I don't like this game. It's no fun for me.
Okay.
I even don't know why.
Yeah, and again, there are a lot of people who don't like this game. And it's kind of like Tapestry, where we said this is a game that you'll either really like or really not like. There's very little middle ground, and I happen to be on the like side.
Yeah. All right, number 35. 35.
Number 35. This is a game that I know you've played because
Oh
you've
my
played it
god.
with me, and
Oh,
you've
that's
played it
bad.
with me in a terrible scenario, which was at an airport on the back of a suitcase.
Oh,
And
very bad.
this is a terrible time to play a game, but it's a great game, and the game is Silver. And so Silver
Oh,
is, and there are four versions of it, as we've discussed recently. There's Amulet, Coin, Dagger, and Bullet. Amulet is the base, was the one that you see there, which is just also sometimes called Silver. But this is a weird game. I don't really even know how to describe it. But you've got 13, or is it 14? It's 0 to 13, so 14 different kinds of cards, and most of them are going to be face down. And what you're trying to do is have the lowest score each round, and you play for 4 rounds. And you're slowly learning the contents of your village, which is a line of cards, and you're sort of swapping them out and manipulating them using the different special abilities of these cards to try and make your own village a little bit safer, meaning lower scores. Now, sort of the hook of the game is as you're learning the abilities, every turn that you take a card, if you have the opportunity to exchange it for another card. But if you can get sets of the same number, so for example, if I know that, or I think I know that I have 3 11s, I can, and I draw a 2, I can immediately swap those 3 11s out for the 2, and the 2 is much better. And so, there's sort of some memory going on here as you're and making choices that might seem not great as you take a card that's bad for you, but hope you can eventually swap it and a couple of its friends out for something better. There's a lot of special abilities going on. I don't know. I don't know what it is about this game. That when I read the rules, I didn't really even understand it. They came out with an app, and it was a terrible app, and it made me not interested in the game. But I played it at Gen Con a couple times ago, and when I played the game, it really clicked for me, and I said, yes, I'm all in on this game. And it's kept giving, right? It's come out with different expansions, and you can play the expansions by themselves, or you can swap them out so that you always have a 0 through a 13, but they can be a different 0 through 13. You can kind of pick and choose them from the different card sets. It's a really fun game. It's very short. It's easy to get into. It's kind of hard to explain, but the rules aren't hard. It's just kind of, it might take a round for people to figure out what's going on. But it's a great travel game. It's one of my favorite travel games. I like it best with 4, but you can play it with 2 just fine. And it's a game that sings to me, and I love that there's so much for it, and I just always enjoy it. And hey, I could enjoy it even at an airport sitting down on the floor playing on the back of a suitcase. So there you have my 35 Silver.
yeah, that's the one I also enjoyed. Maybe I don't love it as much as you do,
That's fine.
but it's I'm not into memory games. But with this one, it's a lighter memory game. It's just so fun. It's just so easy. You draw a card, or you swap a. It's so very basic actions,
Sure.
but kind of a lot of gameplay for these basic actions. If you compare that, which is
That's right.
great. I just got the dagger set. I think it's the latest. Is it?
That is the most recent is Dagger. It's
Yeah.
Amulet, Bullet, Coin, Dagger.
I read through the powers of the cards already, and it's more complicated than the
It
initial
is.
set. It is. It's so I'm like, okay, I need to. Wow, that's not explained, but I
And I
think the
believe I
deck.
told you that.
Yes, I still wanted to have that one as well, more advanced. But I would definitely try to introduce the game. I'll play Dagger anyway because um,
Yeah.
I got. I think I will be able to get extra sets through you because it's not available here in Europe. It's hard to get it here. It's more bigger games. I mean, like U.S. companies,
Yeah,
so
definitely
not
U.S. focus.
not so great distribution. Yeah, indeed. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting other sets, but I will still try out Silver Dagger and see what happens.
Okay.
So I think
And
I will
again,
figure out
you
the
will. It's
powers.
it's not hard. It's just that the abilities in Dagger and Coin tend to be a little bit more involved, whereas the abilities in the first two, which is all we had when I showed it to you, they're a little bit more straightforward. So,
Yeah. All right, let's get to number 34.
all right, number 34 is a game that has come up a lot for me. It used to be my number 75, and this is a game that I was wrong about. The first time I played it, I was like, and then I went back to it. In fact, I even told some people, that game's not worth your time. And I had to apologize to them because after I went back to it and played it again, I don't know what was wrong with that first play, but I love this game now. The game is called Australia,
Okay.
and that's, I believe, AUZ Tralia. There you are. So this is a weird theme here. You are building up a farm in Australia, building a railway connection, and all of a sudden Cthulhu and his minions show up and decide to attack you. And that's kind of it's a well, look, there's often weird themes in games, but what you've got going on here is just this interesting combination of the way things can work together. So you're building your railway network, and that's going to allow you to access different things, which will give you resources. It'll allow you to fight the different minions of Cthulhu that are coming out. And so there's sort of this building stuff up aspect, but there comes a point in the game where you have to pivot to defending yourself and building up. Instead of your network, you've got to build up your military reserves so that you're able to fight the monsters when they come. Because it's that same mechanism we've seen in a couple other games where you've got a time track, and whoever's farthest behind on the time track can take as many actions as he needs to until he catches up to the player in front of him. And then Cthulhu is sort of a player. It has its own token on there, but it doesn't start until much later. So you've got several turns of build-up, and then Cthulhu says it's on now. So, and at that point, he proceeds to send his minions out to attack you. The combat is really odd. It's kind of deterministic combat, but not really, because each monster is... You decide what forces you want to send up, and then you're going to draw cards off this deck, and the deck is going to say, okay, if you're fighting this type of monster, these things hit, and then the monster hits these things. And so it's a weird kind of combat, but it's not hard to understand. And it's kind of fun. I like it. It feels different than rolling your dice or just saying, I have a 5 and you have a 3. And the game isn't very long. And ultimately, I don't know that I've ever had a true victory in this game. Because, the Cthulhu can maybe I have once or twice, but the Cthulhu player can win. But then you can kind of see, how you did against the other players to decide who of you had the sort of better loss. Because it is not a cooperative game. You are fighting Cthulhu independently and hoping that he terrorizes your opponent. So there's that. There are some special ability cards you can get. There's a lot to explore here. And the main mechanism, though, is you're going to do an action and you put a token on it. And then you can do that action again, but you have to pay a gold for each token that's on there. And then you can have one action you can spend to kind of just clear all your boards. So you have to figure out, okay, am I going to waste time clearing the board, or am I going to keep, spending too much money for this action? It's a hard game to describe, and I've probably done a poor job, but it really is a lot of fun. And there's a new expansion coming out, the Tasmania expansion, that's hopefully going to come soon, which I'm excited for as well. I just really like Australia.
I haven't played this one. I don't know. I kind of feel like I want to play this one, kind of not. I'm
Yeah.
in the between, but I don't know. Maybe if there's an opportunity, and so I'll just jump on board and I'll try it out. It might be fun.
Well,
So
I
for
certainly
me,
think it is.
yeah, it's cooperative in a
It is
sense.
not. It is not
Oh
cooperative.
no, okay, not at all. Okay,
I mean, you're both fighting against Cthulhu, but there's going to be one winner and one loser in a two-player game. So
mm,
you're
okay,
not really working. You can play it cooperatively. I think there are rules if you wanted to have a cooperative experience, but
okay,
the basic sort of way to play is not a cooperative game.
got it. Let's get to number 33.
All right, number 33 is another game I don't think you've played, and this one. It came out at the wrong time. It came out right at the start of when things were shutting down last year. But this is a game. It's a pirate themed game, and it's a very
Mm-hmm.
story driven game. And the game is called Forgotten Waters. It was the
Yeah,
first game that newly independent Plaid Hat put out, and it is just a lot of fun. This is a very thematic game. It's more theme and story than it is game, but there's some game there. You're all trying to win separately, but really what you're doing is playing through a fantastically fun and enjoyable adventure. You're pirates, you're crew members to a captain, and the captain has some goal that he or she is going about doing. You're sailing this boat around, and then you go to an island, and you'll open the book and start a timer, and then everybody's going to take their actions, and then you kind of see what happens. It's a weird one to even think about, but you're trying to get different resources. You have a story that you're kind of trying to create for your own pirate. The
yeah,
writing in the game is fantastic. It's fully narrated. There's an app that you use that kind of gives you the random encounters. It's a great way to do sort of the crossroads system that Dead of Winter did, because the app's going to remember all that for you, so you don't have somebody staring at the card, thinking, "Is this going to happen?" But it's one of those games that's 95% story and 5% game. But the 5% is enough that it kind of keeps you engaged. The stories are interesting. It's a little long, but I've played through all of the stories in the base set. I bought the sort of digital only expansion, but I haven't even gotten around to playing it yet. I've played some of the base scenarios lots of times. There's different endings that can happen based upon what you do. There's different interactions. I've never come across the same one twice, and I've played it several times. So I don't know. This is a great pirate adventure. There are laugh at loud moments in this. So I just really love Forgotten Waters.
yeah. That's not. I haven't played that one, of course. It's kind of like a campaign based, and that's why I don't have. I don't know. I don't have this opportunity right now to invest in such a game. I
Sure.
want to try this one out. I'm eager to try it. It sounds interesting. I haven't pulled the trigger to buy it myself. Feel like I don't need to buy it. I need to just play it
I think
a
that's right.
few times to just get the grasp of it, and then maybe if I enjoy it so much, then I can
Yeah.
buy it eventually and get somebody to play campaign with me.
Well, and it's not a campaign. It's five
Oh, it's
different
not at all.
stories.
Okay.
It's five different separate stories that are not related at
Oh,
all. So
okay.
you're going to play one scenario, and it'll be a long scenario, but you'll play it through. It'll have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, the one thing I will say,
Okay.
if we ever feel adventurous, is you can play it remotely. Because of when it came out, they developed a nice interface that you
Hmm.
can use to play it with somebody. Only one person needs to own a copy of the game. So that's something to think about if ever you feel adventurous enough to try it. I've not played it that way. I've looked at the interface and the rules and seen how it would work, but I'm sort of afraid of that kind of thing, so I have not done that. But if if we're on the cruise or something, and that might be a good time to try it. I don't know it's one you need to own. I think only one person needs to own it and then can share the joy. But I own it and I think it's fantastic. So
Yeah.
there we have it.
No, I understand that you can play it remotely, but I don't know.
It's not the best way.
I feel I would like if I get the opportunity to try this game out, I will give it a fair round
Fair
by
enough.
playing it person to person. Just in
Yep.
a case that I might ruin my experience by playing it remotely, and then I'm like, okay, it's not a good game, but maybe if I played it in real life, I'm like, okay, that's a great game.
Yeah, that's
Maybe I don't
fair.
know. I'm just afraid to have this kind of experience.
Sure.
All right, let's get to number 32.
All right, number 32. This is another game you've played. I believe you enjoyed. It was when we did
Yeah,
our top. I think it was one of my favorite ones from last year. The game is Nidavellir. This is
maybe
the coin building game. Um,
yeah.
I guess.
Point
So
system in a
you
different
don't
way.
really have. Well, it's not a coin game, but
I mean,
it's a weird one to describe, right? What you're doing is you're collecting sets. There's some interesting bidding. Everyone has 5 coins, and there are 3 spots called taverns, and there are cards that are going to come out to those taverns, and they have different colors, and you're trying to make sets of the different colors or specialize in and focus on one particular type. But what you're really doing is you're going to use your coins. You're going to secretly determine how much you want to bid on each of the different taverns. You have 1 token, which is your 0, which allows you to combine the 2 coins you didn't use, and make a better one. So you're going to be improving the value of your money, which is also points. By the end of the game, you don't spend the coins; it's more just a bidding system. But it's a really clever bidding system that works really well. Also, this is a game that works well with any number of, well, not one, but it works well with all the different player counts. It's very easy to get into. There's not a whole lot of downtime. The most downtime you're ever going to get is while someone is selecting one of the special abilities, because after you create a set of all 5 colors, you can get a new special ability. It's very fast. Rules are just about the right level. It's a great introductory game. It's just a lot of fun to play. I don't know what it is, but there's something about this game that feels satisfying. Maybe it's kind of like Stockpile in that you're always getting something, and what you're getting is
mm,
always something good. I won't say it's like Stockpile in any other way, but but it's an interesting experience that just works so well for a lot of different reasons. The artwork is okay. The
it's
cards
fine.
aren't very colorful, but they're clear. Everything is very clear. The icons are very simple. Some of the special abilities may need an explanation, but that's 1 or 2 cards, and they're always on display, so anybody can ask about them, and that helps you be able to teach it really easily. But just that process of slowly upgrading your coins and making them better, and deciding, okay, I know I can win one of these bids. Which one is the most important for me? I just really like it. And there's an expansion which is good. It's a good expansion. It adds a little bit more, a couple more things you can do. Very small, easy to mix in, and the kind of thing you can just teach with right off the bat. It doesn't add that many more rules.
Yeah, no, I do have expansion as well now. I haven't tried the expansion. The base game is great. It's good, but I feel like it needs something extra, just a bit extras, just a tiny bit more choices. But I do enjoy it very much
Good.
myself. Yeah, the comparison to stockpile in a sense, um, yeah, somewhat. But
Only in that one aspect. I
because
mean,
I
there,
do
there's
love, yeah, I do love stockpile, but yeah, I cannot see this comparison myself. Maybe I'll look at stockpile in a different way. Everybody kind of enjoys games for different reasons differently. But yeah, it's I was surprised. You talked about this many times, but it's not like each time you say the game is great, I will love it. There we have different tastes.
we definitely do.
But this one, I was like, okay, you talk about it, but it doesn't sound interesting. It doesn't look interesting. It's like, okay, you exchange coins. What you do? You just set collection, whatever. I don't care. But I was like, okay, I need to get it. It's not that expensive of a game, and it
No, it's
doesn't
not.
sound complicated that I need to, learn it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Surprised. I was
Yep.
surprised. I was enamored. It works with 2 players. It works with 3 and 4 players as well. It works with any kind of players. But With 4 players, you get less cards. Well, I mean, I would play it 2-3 the
Right.
best way, but if somebody wants to join the game, I will not say no.
Sure.
Like in some games where I was like, no, maximum player count, you go. All right,
All right.
let's get to number 31.
Okay, my number 31 is a game that I'm pretty sure you have not played and have no interest in trying. It is a So there's three games, and these three games are very related, and this is my favorite of the three. And
Hmm.
the three games, the two that aren't on the list are Agricola and Caverna. This third one is the newest of those three, and that is A Feast for Odin. So, A
Okay.
Feast for Odin is a weird worker placement game, right? You've got workers, and you start the game with something like 65 different spaces you can go to on your turn. And so, which makes it kind of a difficult game to teach. But you're going to place your workers out, and they're going to things. You're trying to fill up this board with sort of that Tetrisy patchwork style of game where you are putting things in spots to try and cover up different spaces and build efficiently. And then there's lots of different ways you can specialize, right? You can focus on farming. Farming is going to give you easy access to food and some resources that you can use to put out. You can focus on exploring, which is going to give you extra boards. And those extra boards come with extra negative points if you don't fill them up. But they also give you access to different bonuses, different resources each turn. You can focus on hunting, like you can go hunt whales or whatever it is, or you can go and be a Viking and raid the England and try and steal its treasures. There's a lot of different ways to focus. You've got cards that give you special abilities, and you can play them at different times and help yourself, give you something only you can do. There's a lot to sort of explore in this game. And because there's so much to explore, I don't like to explore it with more than two players because it can become a little bit. It can really drag down if you add that third player in or fourth player if you're crazy. But as a two-player game, it's fantastic. There's just so much to try, so many different options. And then there's an expansion, and the expansion is a very underwhelming expansion, which just changes a few of the different abilities, or the few of the different action spots. I would say skip that expansion, which I rarely say.
Hmm.
But the game is a table hog, I will say that, and it can be kind of slow as people are trying to figure out where things can go. But if you get into it, it's really a lot of fun. There's just so many things that you can try, and I don't know. Even though I've played the game, I don't know how many times, 30. I haven't tried everything, and I'm always excited when this one comes out, as long as I don't have to teach it.
Uh, Not for me.
Very well.
Let's get to number 30.
Number 30 is a game that I know you have tried because I taught it to you out of the rule book and we played it wrong. This, this one is up from my number 73, and that is Everdell.
Okay.
When you play it with the right rules, I enjoyed it in our play that was wrong, but
What?
I've enjoyed it more with the right rules.
But what did we do wrong? I don't remember the gameplay.
I don't remember either. It was something to do with how we accessed the cards.
Okay.
We,
It
we
was.
didn't have enough access to the cards. I was learning it out of the rule book in a crowded, loud room at Gen Con. So
Hmm.
I made a mistake, but having gone back, the access to the cards is a little bit more free than it was when we played it. Uh, it's a weird game, right? You've got some worker placement, and then you're building this tableau of cards that are going to give different abilities and score in different ways. Some of them give you new worker placement spots that you can go to, or in many cases anyone can go to, and you just get a resource. There are goals you're trying to fulfill, and those are specific combinations of cards, like have the doctor and the stork, and you get some sort of a bonus. You're collecting resources, which you'll use to build your cards. You only have a few workers, and that's sort of the limiting aspect of the game. You can play as many cards as you can afford to play, but you only have a few workers each round, and so there's kind of some tension there. There are three expansions. Yeah, there are three expansions. One of them is this water one, which I like. It's fine. It gives you a new kind of space to go and
The Pearl
explore.
Book.
Pearlbrook. One is the Bell Fair, and that one just adds new stuff. I would add that one in and play with it always. And then one of them, Spirecrest, I think is the name, gives you this extra
Yeah.
board that you're kind of sending a worker out and exploring and getting new special abilities and dealing with new challenges that come out each round. I think that one's the best one. It adds these giant workers, which basically create a super worker for you that has an ability each time you place it. The artwork is very charming. It's one of my favorite board game artists, Andrew Bosley, I think is his name, and it's very charming and warm and delightful. It's cute. It's got this ridiculous tree, which everyone is, whenever people make a list of ridiculous components, the tree is going to be on there because it doesn't do anything except obstruct one player's view of the board. Um, but the game it's not a particularly long game, but it's got a lot going on, and it's a little bit more serious than you might think looking at how light and fun the artwork is. But I really enjoy Everdell, and I know a lot of people who also enjoy it, which means I can play it a lot more. There is some randomness, right? You've got a huge deck of cards, and you might never see what you need. That's perhaps the biggest complaint. But even with that, I'm willing to accept that as a flaw and enjoy everything else that is going on. And some of the expansions make some of those goals a little bit easier. It gives you easier goals, so you can pick, maybe two easy ones and two hard ones to give everybody an opportunity, just regardless, in case you get a bad draw. But I just really like the game. It has one issue, and that is that the print on the card is microscopic, and so it's difficult to see the cards from across the table. But the gameplay, I have very little to complain about on this one. I really like it.
Okay. Yeah, but I enjoyed my play, and so I played it again after we played. It was cool, and I played it again at the board game camp. I think I looked for the rules myself, and somebody was teaching us as well. So we played it right. I'm sure of it.
Good.
There was much more. Yeah, there was quite enough access to the cards. Um, but I don't know why. Maybe I'm not such a fan of limited choices in this kind of a situation. Uh, with only a few workers, though in Lost Ruins of Arnak, it has the same vibe that you have very little workers. You can play as many cards as you want if you get the cards right. Like you can make a huge turn even if you only have two workers, but you can also make a really small turn. And that one felt like a little bit too restrictive. I would have loved for it to be a little bit less of a cards, a little bit more of work replacements, but maybe it wouldn't have been that successful. Just me. Yeah,
Sure.
I eventually got rid of my copy. I'm not. I don't know. I'm just not interested in this game. Maybe it was overhyped. Maybe just this kind of a feel of overhype.
It might have been, but I don't know. I didn't jump in initially, but after I got my copy, I just really started playing it,
Oh,
and I find that there's so much to explore.
I think quite a few people didn't because it's Game Salute. The started games were Game Salute, and people were like cautious about Game
Right.
Salute. Like okay, so there's
Yeah,
the Archmage or what was the Archmage was the game,
Archmage came out at the same time.
and Everdell, two games that we got both games, and Archmage was bad, uh, and Everdell was good.
Fair enough.
Okay, let's get to number 29.
Number 29. So this is a game that I do not think you have played, but I know you have seen played because the game is Maracaibo.
Oh
And
my god.
Maracaibo is a game by one of my favorite game designers, Alexander Pfister. And in this game,
That's
you are
right.
sailing around the Caribbean. And you're getting cards which are going to work together and give you special abilities. You're placing these cubes out, and based upon where you are in favor of, there's three nations, and based on where you are in favor of them, you can score points for that. it's very much a, I don't even know how to describe this game, right? It's very point heavy, right? It's you're trying to churn through and get things, but the way you do it and the different interactions are just a lot of fun. You're definitely doing some deck, almost deck building, I guess, as you're trying to get your cards. You've got this hand of cards that have different uses for them, and when you go to some places, you can turn in a card and get some sort of a bonus. You're unlocking a token off of your ship. You're trying to unlock special
I think
abilities.
he has this kind of a approach to his card play that in quite a few
Yeah,
games he has this kind
yeah.
of a deck building, but not really.
And this is the second game from this designer that we're talking about. We talked about Mombasa a couple of numbers ago, but this is one that I just really love. I mean, it's even if it's hard to describe, I really have had a lot of fun with just kind of exploring the different possibilities. There is a campaign, and the campaign is stupid, but it's also amazing. Because as you go through the story, and the story's barely there, you're going to get these different tokens that are going to go out on the board and change up the spots. So it's kind of like a mini expansion, right? And you could just go through and pull one or two of them out and put them in. I'm not saying I've ever done that, but if the story isn't interesting to you, and it's not a very interesting story, but if you're going to play the game a lot, it's kind of fun to play with it, right? Because the board is ever changing, and it gives you just some more things to do and some sense of discovery. But it's geez, I don't even know how to describe it, but I really like it. When we went on the last Ice Tower cruise several years ago at this point,
Yeah.
we just played this game all the time. It was just the game of the year for me. And I don't know why. I can't put my finger on one specific thing that makes me love this game, but the way everything works together is just so fascinating and fun. The new expansion is coming in a couple of weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that to see what it adds. It's just a really, really enjoyable game. Maracaibo.
Yeah, I realized that I'm not keen to play Fister's, let's say, heavier titles. This leans towards the heavier title, definitely. But I'd say his lighter games, like the Port Royal, which I didn't like at first, but then I enjoyed more. Okay, I didn't like Isle of Sky, which is also lighter, but Isle of Sky is just not a good game. Sorry.
I disagree with that, but
Well, that's fine. But I found my kind of a perfect spot with Cloud Age, which also uses
sure.
that deck building. But I know, over that, the complexity over Cloud Age, and I'm already like, no, I don't think I want to play games with that designer. He becomes this Stefan Feld, Uwe Rosenberg type of designer, and then it's just not my type of game.
Okay.
Though he's well regarded, I'm sure he's a great designer. Does his job well.
I definitely agree. He's probably one of, I don't know if he's my favorite, but definitely one of my favorites.
All right, number 28.
Number 28 is another game of the year for a cruise. It was a game that I know you've played and I believe you've enjoyed. It's up a little bit from number 43 previously. The game is Underwater Cities. So this is an odd
I know
game
this game,
again,
yeah. Yeah.
right? You're building a network of underwater cities. Uh, and what you're doing is you've got, it's a weird combination of card play and worker placement. So you're going to have a hand of normally 3 cards. The cards have 3 different colors. Each turn you're going to place a worker on a spot. There's 3 different colors of spots, and you're going to play a card. If you're able to match it up so that the color of the card you play matches the color of spot you go, you get to perform 2 actions, one from the card, one from the spot. Otherwise, you just get to perform the action on the spot. So there is sort of some sacrifice, right? Maybe there's something you really want to do, but you don't have the right card, so you're going to say, okay, well, I'm just going to do that thing that I need to and give up the thing that I want to. Or you're going to wait and time yourself so that you do have things in the right order. The cards get progressively better as you go through the game. The game is a longer one. There's several rounds, but it doesn't ever really feel slow. Even if sort of all the rounds together make it long. I never really feel bored or feel like there's a lot of downtime in the game. You're building also this network of cities, like I mentioned. You're going to put different buildings around them that are going to give you different resources at the few, I think there's 4 production phases, which is when you get stuff out of those buildings.
Yeah.
And you're trying to do that. There are some goals you can kind of go for. There's an action that lets you buy those and eventually score them at the end of the game. There's different types of cities. Some give you more stuff, but they're more expensive to build. That's the red ones. It's just there's a lot of different pieces in this game. The theme is interesting. It's not. This is right in the middle, right? The theme is definitely there. That's what you're building is an underwater city, but it's not in the way. If you hate the theme, you can still enjoy the game. I don't know why you'd hate it, but there's an expansion that adds a couple of different things. I've only played with some portions of the expansion. I have not played with sort of the main museum piece, but I've enjoyed some of the more modular pieces, like the way that the different way you can score those metropolis tiles. Right, you can kind of pick from a group rather than getting the random one that's dealt to you at the start. I don't know. There's just a lot to love here. It's a really interesting game. And this particular designer, all of his games feel very different, right? This does not feel like Last Will or like Pulsar, but it's the same, sort of brain behind it. And I don't know, I really like this game, and I would love to play it right now if somebody wanted to. So,
Yeah.
And that's kind of how most of the games that, from here on up we're going to be on. So
Yeah.
It's up from my 43, so I've obviously enjoyed it more with repeated plays.
Yeah. First of all, when you said Last Will, that might be a great sequel to Last Will.
It might.
Like, so you try to be as poor as possible, and then the will got lost, and now you stay poor, and now you want to get rich again, and like you go in
Okay.
reverse. That might be
It's a
interesting.
campaign game.
Campaign game, yeah. Rich, poor, rich. Okay, but regarding this game, I want to say it is great. I love it. I played only the quick setup thing is the symmetry thing, which is great. You just put it in the game. You just throw the extra cards in. That's it. But I played only out of the modules that you need to choose from, Metropolis or Museum, whatever. I played only the Museum. I liked it quite a
Sure.
lot. I mean, it's the same as you say with Maracaibo. For me, it's such a. I kind of point out, like, I do like some separate mechanisms, but not in a sense of like, oh, this is so great, I just love it, love this game overly, as a masterpiece as a whole, and it is a masterpiece, and it feels thematic, even though it is abstract in a sense, and it's the same with Last Ruins of Arnak. Just there is theme, you feel it, but once you start playing, and as you said, it's on a long side, and if you play it with quite a few players, it's in a very long side. It's
Sure.
almost the whole day game. No, but look, one thing about this game is that I enjoyed thoroughly. I enjoyed a ton. When I play it, after I have played it, I feel tired. I feel very much satisfied, but extremely tired, and that's where I would pull this game out and play it, and then I would just put it back on the shelf, forget about it for a few months, and then pull it out again, and then enjoy it immersively again.
Sure.
That's kind of a game for me, but it's somewhere in my top 10. So I do love it, but it's not the one I need to play a ton because it
Okay.
is tiring, but in a good sense.
Good.
Just makes you, you know, make your brain work.
It does. It definitely your brain gets some exercise in this game.
All right. So what's your number 27?
All right. Number 27 is another game that I know you've played, and it's one that I think you've enjoyed. It is up from 55 last time. It is a train-themed game, and the game is First Class. I believe it's something like First Class All Aboard the Orient Express, or some ridiculous subtitle.
Yeah, first class.
Yeah.
That would
So
have been enough.
yeah, it definitely would have been. But it's regardless of the weird title, it's an interesting game. It's hard to describe. Just like many other these sort of this period on my list are games that don't really feel like anything else. But what you're doing is there's this tableau of cards, and you're going to be taking one of those cards, and you're gradually building up your own engine. Pun, I guess, intended in this game. And there's sort of really two main areas of focus. You've got a train that's going to move forward and get you bonuses every single sort of at the end of each round. There's three scoring phases, and it'll get you various bonuses there. And then there's this train car that you're going to be able to score a lot of points for. And you've got to move your conductor along this car because you're only going to score points up to where he is. And so you've got to sort of build the train out and then upgrade all of the cars so that you can get the most points possible out of it. Really, what the game is about is figuring out how to make things combo together.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of satisfying about this is, okay, I have to do this. I don't actually have that many actions. It's something like there's only just like a couple each round. It's like 4 or 5. Is it 4? I think you take 2, then we redeal, and then 2. Yeah, 4, or maybe it's 6. Anyway, I'm not good with the numbers, but
4 actions.
yeah, it's you don't get very many actions.
You get
in
4
the game.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah,
Each round.
and
Each round.
and that's before you score, and yet somehow out of those 4 cards, you are going to make things work, and you sort of start and think, "There's no way I'm going to get this train all the way to the end." But by the end of that last action, you can. I mean, well, you won't if you don't try, right? If you focus on other things, but
I mean, yeah.
but it's definitely possible, right? There's a lot of ways to do it. The game keeps giving you tools to accomplish things, and everything you do gives you something else that's going to help you accomplish something else. And so getting everything just to work together is a lot of fun. And making sort of ridiculous combinations that feel broken, that's also a lot of fun because everyone else has the opportunity to make them as well. There's also 6, 7 different modules, and each game you're gonna play with 2 of them, and that sort of adds some variety. Nothing other than the murder one, which I've still never played.
The G module is the last one. Yeah.
There's not a lot of new stuff in the modules, but there's enough, right? It changes things just a little bit to add some variety to a game, so that it doesn't always feel like you're doing the same thing. But I just really love that sort of thrill of getting things to work and being able to accomplish things that I didn't think were possible at the start of the game. You're going to scores in this game tend to be very high, and that's okay. You feel like you got a lot of points, and I just really enjoy it. Theme wise, not a lot going on, right? You're just building a train and moving a train, but the mechanisms work together, and it's a really fun game to play.
I do love this game. It's an amazing design, and it's not the one that you would suggest to me. It's not the one that you would say, "Oh, you're gonna love this game." That's
No.
like that was a big surprise for me, and probably for
And
you
for
that I
me.
enjoyed it that much. And for you as well. So for everybody, such a huge surprise. No, look, this game might not be for everyone, but as Kyle says, the combos you create, the combos are so juicy, so great. You just love. You are in that moment, and other players are like are there for 5 minutes just watching you create a new action after action after action. With this like huge scorings as well. I just love it, and to be honest, I've played this game a few times, and most of the times, like just one time, I played it with a like, kind of another module, was like the luggage and passengers module, something like that. I remember the luggage thing,
Yeah.
but I played vanilla, the A and B,
Sure.
the initial ones, and each time I played just the base game and enjoyed a ton. I don't know
Sure.
why, but maybe it was because I was introducing to other people, and some modules are a little bit more not complicated. They are not complicated in a sense, but they are more complicated than the base.
That's fair.
than the vanilla one, because with the luggage and things, it's a little bit extra you need to get going. Uh, and as you play the game for the first time, there's already a lot you need to consider. So
There
I
is.
moved this one, and you already consider all of these combos you're trying to create. Yeah, I think, yeah, as I said, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G modules. G module is the magician module, the
Okay.
push your luck kind of a module. I think there's no H. No, no.
I don't
G
think
is
so.
the
I think
G is
G's
the
the
last
last
one.
one.
But it's a ton of gameplay. It's a ton of
Sure.
different combinations you can try. Wow, such a great game.
All right.
I agree with you. So the last one for today, 26.
The last one for today is another one that I believe you have played. This is an older
Sure.
game now. It is up from number 42, so it's come up a lot. The game is Five Tribes. A game with very little theme,
Six
but it
tribes.
looks great. So, what you're doing is you've got this board that's set up, and it's all these tiles that are out there, and there are all these workers, these little meeples that are on the spots. And each turn you're going to pick one spot, pick up all the meeples, and then move around, dropping one off at every spot you go over. And then eventually you're going to put your last one down, and it has to match with a color. It has to be the same color as at least one that's already on that spot. You're going to pick those up, and those will give you an action. You're going to get an action from the color of meeple you picked up and from the spot that you sort of activated when you stopped there. And that's kind of what you're doing. I mean, that's kind of the core piece of the game, and the rest is all figuring out how to make it work together. The different colored meeples give you different things to focus on. There's two expansions, one of which is amazing, and the other of which is okay. And they give you sort of new options and new things to explore. You can buy these genie cards, which are going to give you special abilities, but they can be expensive. It's up to you. You can sort of get one spot and then dump a whole bunch of these palm trees or palaces on it and make it worth a lot of points. You're trying to claim spots by clearing them off completely. There's also money, and every round you're going to bid for the turn order, which is very interesting the way that the bidding works. There's sort of a set number of spaces, and you pay the amount. Like, this is, if you want to go here, you're going to have to pay 8, and then that makes that based upon how far you are on this track, that's going to determine your turn order. There's a couple of spots you can always go to for free, but then you're usually going to be last. So, and the turn order can be very important in this. As I believe, I think you are in the same agreement with me that the game is actually best at 2, because you've got two actions each turn, and based upon where you are in the turn order, you can sort of use the first one to set up something big for the second one. I don't know if it works well with 3 and 4 as well, but with the higher player counts, you have a little bit less control, because by the time it comes to your turn, there's going to be a little bit of downtime as you sort of figure out the puzzle is shifting constantly. And so, the thing you had thought about doing might not be available anymore, or might be not feasible anymore. So I think it's definitely best at 2, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy figuring out how things work. The game never really feels boring to me. There's just a lot of things to try and experiment with, and I keep coming back to it. I don't remember when it came out, but it has been a few years.
14.
And 14, there you go. It
I think,
holds
yeah.
up. 14 was a great year. It holds up really well even after all this time. So that is my number 26, the last one for today, Five Tribes.
Do you remember if the mountains were in the expansion or the base game?
They're the first expansion, and the mountain
Oh,
just,
yeah.
you can't cross it.
Yeah, I
And
know.
I
Yeah,
like
because
that. It makes it
I
more
like
of a
that.
challenge.
Oh, the chasm was as well from the expansion. Yeah.
Yeah, which you can't ever go to. Yeah, that's with the expansion there.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
first expansion.
Then yeah, then that was a great expansion. I liked it
Yeah.
a lot. Look, Five Tribes. I don't own it anymore. I liked it quite a lot. It was great. I would play it only 2 players. 3, 4 just doesn't work in this game for me, because having those 2 actions, it's a little bit more strategy. If you have
Right.
them apart or together, I kind of feel as this game benefits from more control.
It
Otherwise, it might
does.
be frustrating. And but eventually, we got also the I say a spiritual sequel, and people say it's not the same, but it is. I mean, like they are very similar games. They just two sides of the coin, basically. One is Five Tribes, another one is Yamatai. In Five Tribes, you are cleaning the board. In Yamatai, you are building up the board, but
Sure.
it's so many connections between those two games, and in both of those two games, two players is the best, I think. And as eventually I was like, okay, I have Five Tribes in Yamatai, and Five Tribes doesn't get to table that much, so I choose between two. I choose Yamatai, but you can choose one over the other. They're both great. With that, eventually I also got rid of sorry, Yamatai as well, but I don't know, they are both great games. Me getting
They
rid of
are both
games
great
is
games.
just no my phases of different tastes. But
Yeah, and
yeah, okay.
Yamatai isn't going to be on my list. Just again, kind of the same reason as Altiplano won't be, right? There's a game that it's almost equivalent with, and I see what you're saying, right? This one feels a lot like Yamatai. I think I prefer Five Tribes a little bit, but Yamatai is also a great game. So
It is. All right, so here we are. It's the last one for today.
it is.
Let's stop this nonsense. Okay.
There we
Yeah.
go.
But the next one will be the top 25. We get to your
Hooray!
top 10 as well eventually. It's all going to be in one video. We're not going to
Yeah, it will
separate.
be because that's really all we have left.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's been a long one, but the games, as you go further down the list, the games become more and more lovable and interesting for you. You know,
They
I'm sure
do. I've just
there's
got more to say.
yeah, me too. Yeah,
And,
we
and
have
also, you're going to start, recognizing more of them. I mean, if I look at the upcoming ones, there's several of them that you have played and will have at least some thoughts about. For those who have
nice.
seen my lists before, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of surprises in the top 25, but but they are games that I really enjoy, and that's why they kind of stay where they are.
All right, but thank you for watching. We're gonna see you in a week.
In a
It
week.
should be. Yeah, it should be because yeah, usually we do once, once every 2 weeks. But for that kind of a special topic, it would have been too long to look
It would have
forward to.
taken forever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But after that, we'll get back to our original schedule.
Great.
Maybe if people want that, we might get to a once a week podcast, and maybe differentiate the topics, do
Sure.
a kind of a special episode, the usual episode, and then the special episode, and we'll see. I have some ideas.
Good.
Uh, just look forward to that.
All
Anyway,
right.
thank you and bye bye.
Bye.